Morning again. When is too late, too late? Funny that's the title. I've known I was going to be speaking today for about 3 months, as the pastor knew when the baby was going to be coming, and he kept asking me, "You going to be all right? You going to be all right?" And then had a little minor heart issue and spent last weekend in the hospital. And he came to the hospital and said, "You're going to be all right? Do it Sunday." And I said, "Yeah, I'll be all right." And he kept last night. He said, sent me a text, said, "You still okay to speak tomorrow?" Because he said we could swap Sundays if you didn't feel like it. And I said, "No, I'm good." I woke up this morning and I wasn't feeling so good. And it's a little too late to say, "Tag, you're it, Pastor. Let's swap." But we're good. My goal is to remain upright and vertical. Something happens, I got back up. My cousin's here, the paramedic. Just remember, I'd rather go to Gateway instead of Midtown if something were to happen. But we know, we trust in the Lord. We're going to be good. It may be a quick sermon if I run out of breath, but we'll see. So, dear, would you move to the next slide for us? I don't know if you could see this picture. This is from 2014. We took the youth group to Highland Lakes Camp. It's a camp owned by the Indiana State, I forget the Indiana State Convention, but it's a resort camp, and we took the youth there, 2 or 3 years, Jenny? And they kept talking about this thing called the blob. I was like, what in the world? We get there, and I don't know if the girl flipping in the air happened to be Molly. I just happened to be walking back at the lake and catch this thing. And that year, I didn't take my swimming trunks because I didn't really want to go swimming in the lake. Well, at the time, our youth pastor was Brandon, and he wanted to do the blob, but there wasn't anyone big enough to blob him off the end of it. So next year he said, "Mike, you're going to take your swimming trunks." I said, "All right." So we get there, and I jump off the thing and blob Brandon off the end, get him about 4 feet in the air, and said, "Yay," roll off and get back in line. But when I did that, there's this little kid, well, I call him little kid, 7th or 8th grader, that kept pestering me. "Hey, mister, you going to come to that lake today? You going to blob me?" "No, I don't think it's a good idea." And for 3 days, whether it was in the morning worship, lunch, wherever he seen me, "You going to come to the lake today? You going to blob me?" "No, I don't think so. It's not a good idea." Well, the 3rd day there, I'm back there, and I blob Brandon off. And this kid, "Oh, come on, you got to do me." And I said, "No, I don't think it's a good idea." And his mom, I guess, was a chaperone. She said, "He's going to keep bothering you till you do it." I said, "I really don't think it's a good idea." And she said, "Well, just go ahead and do it. He's part of the swim team. He knows how to enter the water." And I said, "All right." So I get up there, the kid, when at the very end of that, you sit on the end of that blob facing the lake, and then the next person jumps off this platform, which is about, 7 feet in the air. And typically, when you are the person that jumps off and sinks, you don't see the person that gets shot up in the air. Well, that kid was something in the end. With Brandon, I had to kind of get a running start, jump up, and then come down. I wasn't going to do that with this kid. So I just kind of jumped off the end, landed on my butt, and sink down. And I look up, and I can see this kid. When I jumped down, he was facing towards the lake. When he is up in the air, he's facing me. And I'm thinking, this is not going to be good. And he was flailing around, and about a couple seconds later, I hear, And the kid pops out of the water screaming. And I'm like, man, his mom said, you told him. And, what are you going to do? But I'm thinking when that kid realized when he's up in the air, at that point, it was too late to change his mind. It was going to hurt. And it did. But, the sad thing is, the next day, he said, hey, you going to blob me again? It's like, didn't you learn? And the whole reason I mentioned that is that today we're going to be talking about two extremes in society. And that kid, weight-wise, we were at two extremes. At that time, I was about 305, and I think he was 70 pounds soaking wet. And, when I launched, I don't know how high I got him in the air, but it's higher than what Molly's showing in that picture. And I don't know if it's because of that, but I've been told Highland Lakes no longer has the blob. They removed it from the lake. But anyway, as I said, today's primary scripture we're going to be looking at drives home the truth that there's only two possible destinations for us when we leave this world. And there will come a time when it's too late to accept the truth. Just as that kid got bounced off the end of that thing, there was a time when he had to accept the truth that this is probably going to hurt when I hit that water. And it did. But if we look at Luke chapter 16, verses 19 through 31, it says, there was a rich man who was dressed in purple and fine linen and lived in luxury every day. At his gate laid a beggar named Lazarus, covered with sores and longing to eat what fell from the rich man's table. Even the dogs came and licked his sores. The time came when the beggar died, and the angels called him to Abraham's side. The rich man also died and was buried. In Hades, he was in torment. He looked up and saw Abraham far away, with Lazarus by his side. So he called to him, Father Abraham, have pity on me and send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, because I'm in agony in this fire. But Abraham replied, Son, remember that in your lifetime you received your good things while Lazarus received bad things. But now he is comforted here and you are in agony. And besides all this, between us and you as a great chasm has been set in place, so that those who want to go from here to you cannot, nor can anyone cross over from there to us. He answered, Then I beg you, Father, send Lazarus to my family, for I have 5 brothers. Let him warn them, so they will not also come to this place of torment. Abraham replied, They have Moses and the prophets. Let them listen to them. No, Father Abraham, he said, but if someone from the dead goes to them, they will repent. He said to him, If they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, they will not be convinced, even if someone rises from the dead. So if we look at that, this parable is the only parable in the Bible, or the only passage in the Bible, that describes the emotional feelings of unbelievers after death. Jesus paints a very vivid picture of the two men that represent extremes of human society. Just as I talked earlier, me and that kid represented the extremes of size. Where I was a little bigger, he wasn't so big. Where in this, there was the rich man that lived a life of luxury, and Lazarus was, just a beggar that laid at his gate. One man was rich. He dressed in the most expensive clothes, the finest linens. His meals were like a banquet every day. In contrast, the beggar lived in unsanitary conditions. And since we're told that he laid at the gate, we can gather from that he was either crippled or made helpless from his illness. And he was covered in sores, and he somewhat survived with the scraps thrown from the rich man's table. And the scripture points out that the man was so weak, he couldn't even fend off the dogs that roamed the streets. And then we're told that both men died, one went to heaven, one went to hell. So what are we to learn from this parable? First and foremost, we learn heaven and hell are actual places. I've heard many preachers say that Jesus spoke more about hell than heaven. I can't say for sure. I don't know. I've never did the research. But the one thing that we should know is the fact of the matter is that Jesus talked about both and that they were actual places. And I'll be honest, there's a lot of things about the Bible I don't understand. And I probably never will this side of heaven. But the one thing that I do know is the Bible makes it perfectly clear as you can make it, that every person that's ever lived on this earth will spend eternity in either heaven or hell, one of two places. In 1 John 5:11 through 12, it tells us, "And this is the testimony. God has given us eternal life, and this life is in his Son. Whoever has the Son has life. Whoever does not have the Son of God does not have life." Essentially, with Christ, you have life, eternity in heaven. Without him, you spend eternity in hell. And secondly, our worldly conditions are not a testament to the value of the eyes of God. Luke 16:13 through 15 tells us, "No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money." The Pharisees who loved money heard all this and were sneering at Jesus. He said to them, "You are the ones who justify yourselves in the eyes of others, but God knows your heart. What people value highly is detestable in God's sight." Essentially, whether you're rich or poor doesn't make a difference. It's where your heart is. And Cole kind of talked about it in his video Wednesday night, is that don't buy into the prosperity gospel. How much you have or don't have is not evidence of God's love and blessing in your life. The only thing that matters is your relationship to Jesus Christ. We live today in a what's good for me society. We look after each other first. And this rich man was sort of like that. He lived a life of luxury. He was thoughtless. He was selfish. He had opportunities to help Lazarus, but he didn't. He chose not to. Through the parable, we're warned of the pitfalls and dangers of living a life of greed and a lack of love for others. And we have to understand, Lazarus wasn't in heaven merely to receive compensation for everything he went through on earth. There may be many a poor man in heaven just as there are, or there may be many a poor man in hell as there are rich men in heaven, but where you at and your social status and money doesn't make the difference. Lazarus was simply there because he believed Moses and the prophets. He believed in God's word. And then thirdly, when believers die, we're immediately in the fellowship and joy of heaven. And where do I get that from? The best example that I can give you is if we remember the story of the thief on the cross who was next to Jesus. And he recognized who Jesus was. And he told Jesus, "Remember me when you enter into your kingdom." And Jesus said to him, "Truly I tell you today, you will be with me in paradise." And Jesus didn't say that you'll be there tomorrow or you'll be there in 2,000 years. He said, you'll be there today. My grandma, Evelyn, used to always say, absent from the body, present with the Lord. And we know grandmas don't lie. But essentially what she's saying is the moment you take your last breath, you wake up in heaven or you wake up in hell. But it's the choice is yours. And fourthly, when believers die, they immediately experience the torment and eternity separated from God. Once you take that last breath, it's too late to change your mind. I remember when I was in high school, I occasionally played speed chess during lunch, generally when it was too nasty to do anything outside. There's a group of guys that sit over at the end of the lunchroom and played speed chess. And I don't know if you know or familiar with speed chess, but it's a little bit different than regular chess. It's a fast-paced chess game. Usually the games last about 10 minutes. You have the clock that sits there at 10 minutes, and you start the game out, you move your piece, and then you have to hit the clock with the same hand you move your piece, your chess piece with. You can't use both hands or you're considered cheating. But the thing is that once you do it in chess, and that's the same way in regular chess, but in speed chess, it's more prevalent. As soon as you take your hand off that game piece, your turn is over, whether you hit the clock or not. You don't get to think, oh, I shouldn't have made that move and go back and move it. Once you move your chess piece, remove your hand, your turn is over, it's ready for the next person. And there was this kid that I cannot remember, I can see his face, but I can't remember his name, that I really didn't like playing against when we were doing the speed chess. I was just a casual player. I'm not some great chess master, and I probably hadn't really played chess in maybe 35, 40 years. But at that time, this kid, he really studied the game. And you'd pick your piece up, get ready to move it, and he'd say, "Are you sure you want to put it there?" And then, I know he was just playing in your mind, but it used to drive me so nuts that he would just just keep intimidating. "Are you sure that's the best move?" And generally in speed chess, you got to know your moves like 3 or 4 moves in advance, or you're going to get pretty much wiped off the table. But this kid was good, and as soon as you moved your game piece, he already had his move. And it's the same way with life, that there are no do-overs. Once you take your last breath, that's it. And just like I was talking about when playing chess, as soon as you remove your hand from that game piece, your turn's over. There's no do-overs. That's it. And you have to live with the consequences. In Hebrews 9:27, it tells us people are destined to die once, and after that they face judgment. And sadly, there are many believers, or there are many people that believe that they can live their life the way they want, do whatever they want, and wait till they get older to make their choice with their faith. And there's some that even think that I'll have time right before I die, I can make a deathbed confession. Before I take that last breath, I'll live my life the way I want. And I ask, are you willing to take that much a gamble on where you spend eternity? It's not like the roulette wheel or 21. You can't gamble with your life. James 4:14 says, "You don't know what will happen tomorrow, for what is your life? It's even a vapor that appears for a little time, then vanishes away." Life goes by so quick. I know a lot of people told us that, the girls, you're going to wake up one day and they're older. Nah, that's, and now I look back and I'm thinking, man, they were just learning to walk not too long ago, and one of them's getting ready to get married, and the other one's getting ready to graduate from college, and it goes by so quick, and life goes by quick, and things happen, and there's no guarantee for tomorrow. If you think that you're going to risk it and you're going to have time right before you take your last breath, you're sadly mistaken. I'm not saying every situation is going to be like that, but it's not worth the risk. And I can tell you, I can speak from experience. I'm not going to cry, Tanya, but This coming June will be 2 years from the day. I lied. This coming June will be 2 years from the day that I was in the ER and my heart stopped. The doctor said I was dead, and if I wouldn't been in the ER, they may not have got my heart restarted. But it happened so quick. You don't have time. I just remember telling the nurse, I don't feel so good. And it was like that. And then I wake up, and there's 3 nurses standing over me. One of them's putting defibrillator pads on, and I remember saying, I'm awake, no shock advised. And she started laughing. And she said, don't do that. We're getting ready to put an IV in your arm. And I remember the words she said, apparently, I promised I wasn't going to do this, but she said, apparently God's not done with you yet. And I know I mentioned this a couple times when I preached before, but if you think that you're going to have time before you take your last breath to make that decision, you're sadly mistaken. I can't say every experience is going to be like what I went through, but it happened so quick. I had no time. I was laying there feeling fine, and then my heart just stopped. And they were able to get it restarted. Your life, you can't live that risk. I was, as I've told you before, I was confident in where I was going to wake up. I can't say I wasn't scared. I can't say that I didn't want to go, but I can tell you that I knew that if that was my last breath, when I woke up, I would be in heaven because of the knowledge that I have through salvation. But I asked, do you know if something were to happen to you, where you would wake up after your last breath? And then, fifthly, dead can't come back to warn the living. As the rich man said, I have brothers. Can you send Lazarus back to talk to them? That's not the way that's not the way it works. I've heard people say that if they could only see a miracle or be spoken to by an angel, then they would believe. But do we really believe that? There are so many miraculous things that happen in this world that can only be explained that it's God that took care of it. And people still won't acknowledge that there is a God. Look at when the people were there, we can describe the people that were seeing Jesus and the miracles that he performed. Even when they had the Messiah with them, there were still people that turned away and didn't believe. The Word of God is more convincing of a witness than any miracle. Scripture is the Holy Spirit's primary tool for bringing people to repentance. I've heard many stories of people being in a hotel room contemplating their life and open up the nightstand next to it and pull out a Bible, and God speaks to them through that word, and they make a change in their life. When has nothing to do with the sermon today, but when we were in China, the first hotel we stayed in, I opened up the nightstand just to see what was in there, and it was the Book of Buddha, which isn't going to do anybody any good. But thankful that, we have the Gideon Project where there are Bibles in hotel rooms, not just the United States, but around the world. But wish there was something more that I could do for China, but I was so disappointed when I opened that drawer, and I think it said the teaching of Buddha. But the one thing the hotel did, it had a phone in the bathroom. And this was around, you think about it, this was 2001, and cell phones were just new, and me being who I am, wasted an international phone call just to call Dad and say, "Hey, Dad, guess where I'm sitting?" And but they had all that modern things, but they didn't have God's word. And I remember where we stayed at was, if you ever remember, the older George Bush got sick in a hotel room in a hotel in China. That's the hotel we were staying at. And they actually had pictures of him, and I think Richard Nixon had stayed there when he had visited China. But we were like a block away from the consulate, the American consulate. But I don't want to get into that story, but I remember they didn't have God's word, and there was a church just down the street from the hotel, but it had a gate around it and it was locked. That there wasn't, it just, to me, it seemed sad that the book they had and that the church was locked for nobody could go in. But that's the world we live in. And getting back to what I was talking about, that God speaks to us through His Word. And His Bible tells us everything we need to know about our salvation. And man's failure to believe is not due to lack of any evidence. It's due to a closed heart. When we close our heart off to God. Then on the evening of April 25th, 1999, British Airways Flight 286 left San Francisco for London, England. The flight was carrying 391 passengers, and a few hours into a 10-hour flight, many of the passengers were asleep. And suddenly, everyone was jolted awake by an announcement blaring over the plane's speakers that the passengers were horrified to hear. "This is an emergency announcement. We are being forced to make a landing at sea. Please put on your life jackets, which can be found under your seat." People began to immediately panic, scrambling around, grasping for life jackets, trying to comprehend what was happening. And then, as it turned out, nothing happened. It was a false alarm. One of the flight crew hit the alert by mistake. But the flight crew spent the rest of the flight trying to calm people down. They said there wasn't a lot of sleeping that went on the rest of the way. But they said by the time the plane landed safely in London, more people read the emergency procedure manual than they did when they listened to them before the plane took off. But that's how we live life. We don't pay attention. We ignore things until it's too late. And I asked, do you read and study the Bible, what it says about the afterlife? To ignore the Bible is to invite disaster. Kind of like not paying attention to emergency procedures when you're flying on a plane. When it happens, it's a little too late to try and figure out. And then when you read the Bible, don't treat it like you're reading a fortune cookie. And what do I mean by that? There are some people that when they open their Bible, they open it and then they blindly take their finger and land on a verse and say, that's the passage that God is asking me to read, and that's how God is speaking to me. That's not a good way to study the Bible. I heard a couple days ago, I heard this pastor describe the danger in that. He told the story of a person that did that, and the first verse they landed on was Matthew 27:5. Said Judas went and hanged himself. The person thought to himself, I must have messed up. Surely that's not what God's telling me. Let's try another verse. The next verse was Luke 10:37. Jesus told him, go and do likewise. And then the guy said, oh, this is, I messed up again. This is not what God wants. And then his last verse, he landed on Mark 10:21. It says, go and sell all you have and give to the poor. And the person thought to himself, I've got a faulty Bible. I need to do something else. It's not, God's word isn't faulty, but our methods can be. That's not a good way to read the Bible. And if you've never studied the Bible, let me suggest a few things. One, select a Bible translation that's simple for you to understand. And if you're not sure, ask the pastor, a trusted Christian friend. And most importantly, every time you go to read God's word and study, pray before you read it. Pray for God to reveal himself through his word. And then it's not, if you've never really studied the Bible, it's not good to start with page 1 of the Bible and read through Genesis. And then I recommend that if you've never studied the Bible, start with the book of John. That is a very good book to start if you're just new to studying the Bible. And then read the Bible one book at a time. If you jump around reading single verses, you miss out on the context and the overall picture of what's being said. And then follow a reading plan. There's many out there. I use the Bible app called YouVersion. And you can, through it, you can connect with church members and family, and they offer many reading plans to study the Bible. And then there's always lifeway.com that you can look for certain Bible study material. And our church even provides open windows and a couple other things that we have out in the foyer to help you if you're going to do devotions or read the Bible. Then read the Bible at your own pace. It's recommended that you keep a journal to write down your thoughts and questions while you're studying. And then if we have a small group Bible study, whether it's Sunday school or another small group, it's good to get involved in one of them. That way you can learn together. Reading God's word and studying it helps us grow in our faith. And then lastly, what can we learn? What we can learn is the feeling of regret the rich man experienced in hell. Regret of missed opportunities. The problem is the woulda, shoulda, couldas will torment him through eternity. What if I'd have done this? I should have done that. I could have done that. You look at yourself, ask yourself, do you have regrets of missed opportunities? Regrets come in many forms. You know, there's regrets of, man, I shouldn't have ate that Triple Trees burrito last night. Or there's regrets of decisions you've made in your life. I should have did this, or I should have done that. Every day that I go home and walk up our steps to our bedroom, I regret that I didn't listen to my mother-in-law when we built our house. She told us when we built our house, you are to put your master bedroom on the main floor. And I was like, nah, there's no need in that. And she's like, you sure? You're going to get older. No, I'm in good shape. Let me tell you, I was like, why didn't we put our bedroom on the main floor? I've even talked to Tanya and said, how about if we get an elevator? That's actually, the steps can, I look back at it though, the steps are a good thing. That's how I determined I was in AFib last week, because I got to the bottom of the steps and I couldn't breathe. I was like, something's wrong. But I still wish the bedroom was on the first floor. But anyway, there's regrets that are just affect us. But there's also the regrets of opportunities we've had to share a gospel with a friend or family member, but for whatever reason we didn't, and they passed away before we had that chance. It's like, we should have took the time to talk to them. Or that we felt God calling us to help someone, but we just chose not to get involved. There's missed opportunities that we can have the regret, but today we can't live in the past. The past is the past. We can't change whatever we've done in the past. All we can do is go forward and do better to follow what God is calling us to do. And we have to remember that time is fleeting. We shouldn't live a life of regret. We need to take the opportunities when they occur. And then in closing, if you only remember one thing I said today, remember this. It's not riches or poverty that determine your destiny, but belief or unbelief. Don't wait until it's too late. Believe in the Lord Jesus as your Savior today. We shouldn't dwell, like I said, on past mistakes or the missed opportunities. We live for Christ today. So as the musician and Becky come forward, I've asked Dennis to stand in front this morning to greet if you have any prayer concerns or you have a decision for the Lord. And I appreciate this is a team effort today. It's about time for me to sit down so I can catch my breath, but I appreciate Dennis coming forward. But I urge you that if you have never made a decision for Christ, I urge you to do so today. And thank you.
We hope this sermon has been a blessing to you today. If you have any questions about what you've heard, we would love to hear from you through our church Facebook page, email, or by calling the church office.